I just finished the novel Star Trek Strange New Worlds Towards the Night by James Swallow. I'm a big fan of Star Trek novels. I've been reading them since I was a teenager. Some are better than others. And I have to say, without hyperbole, without exaggeration, this is one of my favorite Star Trek novels, one of the best books I've ever read in this franchise. It's excellent. It has exactly what you want in a Star Trek book. I don't want to give the plot away. I don't want to go into spoilers, and I won't, but I have to talk about a few elements of the story in order to do a proper review. But I will keep that to an absolute minimum. First, I'm going to address a criticism that I have of a lot of Star Trek novels. And as a guy who's written books myself, I understand the temptation that a lot of Star Trek authors fall into, and that's creating a lot of characters that are outside of what we've seen in Star Trek. If somebody picks up a Star Trek novel, they want to read about the characters that they know from the television show and movies. That's why you buy a Star Trek book. Presumably, you're a Star Trek fan. A lot of Star Trek novels make the mistake of the author focusing too much on the ancillary characters. We want to see new characters, absolutely, 100% for sure, but the book should be about the main characters. And if you introduce new characters, it should be as a way of giving something for our familiar characters, giving our characters somebody to interact with, a situation to interact with, a conflict to resolve. But you still want to tell your own story. And if you take that too far and it goes too far outside of Star Trek, you're not really reading much of a Star Trek novel. This book doesn't make that mistake. We get some excellent new characters that we've never seen before, but the focus is on the main cast, and that's a good thing. The story has exactly what somebody would want in a Star Trek novel. The characters that we know, fleshed out with conversations that feel like the characters' voices that we recognize from the show. We get familiar yet new situations. This book follows the A and B story format. What I mean by that is you have the A story, which takes place on the Enterprise. And then you have the B story, which takes place with the crew below on this new alien planet. In A story, we get the Enterprise with some technical problems, a face-off with the Klingons, some diplomatic situations, some technological issues that need to be resolved, a lot of things going on the ship, and that's excellent. Our B story takes place on the planet below, where they have a separate set of circumstances that they need to resolve, and of course those things are connected. We get the confrontation with the Klingons, we get an alien world, we get new characters that are fun to read about, but they don't overwhelm the story. We get aliens, we get a fun introduction, and a fun epilogue that tie the whole thing together with a surprise cameo at the end, which I appreciated. If you're at all interested in Star Trek novels, and I presume that you are if you're watching this video, I highly recommend this book. It's one of the better Star Trek novels I've ever read, and I'm not exaggerating. It does exactly what you want a Star Trek novel to do. And by the way, if you're an audiobook fan, Robert Petkoff is a fantastic narrator. He nails the character voices. He's a male, and when he's reading female characters, you don't get the idea that he's doing an impression of the characters. He just has slight vocal inflection changes that make you realize that you're listening to different people. He talks one way when he's being Captain Pike. He talks another way when he's being Uhura, but it doesn't sound like he's doing an impression of these people. He just changes his voice just enough, and after a little while, you forget that you're listening to a narrator. You feel like you're watching a Star Trek episode. You visualize it in your mind, and Robert Petkoff's narration is excellent. James Swallow's writing is excellent. He nails the character voices, and he pieces together a story that is quintessentially Star Trek. Highly recommend the book. Hit that like and subscribe button so you don't miss future content. Until then, folks, live long and prosper.